Hello and good evening as folks are joining us. We will just allow a moment for folks to get connected. My name is Laura Shepard, and I have the great privilege of serving as the Public Experiences Manager at the Ashkenazi Museum of Art. My pronouns are she and her. I will just share a bit of information as we're waiting for everyone to connect, and we will begin at 7 o'clock. Although it's a webinar and everyone's muted, we invite, if you're curious, to submit questions into the Q&A this evening. We are recording this evening. I've received several questions already. Video recordings will be available after the program, though we do send all of our programmed video recordings for professional review of closed captioning. So we appreciate your patience during that. For information and updates when videos become available, we invite you to subscribe to Museum News. For those who are just joining us, welcome. We will begin in just a moment at 7 o'clock. In the meantime, I invite you to upcoming programs that are also related to the Art of the Character exhibition, including this weekend, opening weekend, Improv for Families. Gather the family for a playful experience with us tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. Also upcoming in June, we invite you to take time for self-care with Pride Month Self-Care Saturday. We're going to offer a soul collage workshop with themes of identity and transformation that are found in the exhibition and also inspired by Glenn Close's advocacy for mental health. We also have a self-care Saturday upcoming in May on the topic of inner characters. It's an art and drama therapy workshop with an art therapist and a drama therapist. And we're looking forward to celebrating in person when students return to campus on August 19th, first with the Culture Fest Arts Trail celebration. We'll be celebrating the exhibition, and then also with a Saturday celebration on the terrace with live music and refreshments also in August. If you're just joining us, welcome. We'll get started in just a minute. We have a large group joining tonight. We're allowing just a moment for everyone to connect. So I'm just sharing a few programs upcoming in association with this exhibition. We believe in foregrounding students, so now I'm going to welcome Keaton. He has the honor of presenting the program this evening.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursdays at Home. We're excited to be celebrating the opening day of the featured exhibition, Art of the Character, Highlights from the Glenn Close Costume Collection, with the special curator talk with Kelly Richardson this evening. On behalf of the students, staff, and volunteers at the IU Ashkenazi Museum of Art, thank you for joining us. My name is Keaton. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a museum host and a student studying arts management. We wish to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that Indiana University Bloomington was built on indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. As Laura said, today's program is being recorded. Before recordings are released, they are sent for professional review of closed captioning. For updates of when recordings are going to be released, please subscribe to Museum News through the website. There's a link for that in the chat. For those who are curious to ask questions, we invite you to submit questions by typing into the Q&A, which is located on your Zoom toolbar, typically at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be addressed after the presentation. Here are a few tips for optimizing your experience over Zoom today. There are several ways to adjust the size of images on your screen. If you're connecting from a PC or laptop, at the top of your screen, look for View Options. Click on View Options to select settings that work best for you. The vertical bar between the slides and the speaker slides left and right to make the presentation slides or the speaker bigger or smaller. For those connecting with a phone or an iPad, you may be able to enlarge images by pinching the screen. Closed captioning is available for this program. This can be turned on from your Zoom toolbar. Now I'd like to present the Art of the Character highlights from the Glenn Close Costume Collection, which is presented in partnership with the Sage Fashion Collection in the Sydney and Lois Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design. The exhibition is co-curated by Kelly Garrett Richardson, curator of the Sage Fashion Collection, and Galina Olmsted, assistant curator of European and American art at the Eskenazi Museum of Art. At this time, we would like to say a big thank you for the generous support of the exhibition and catalog that was provided in part by the Indiana University Foundation's Wells House Society and Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council, the Office of the Bicentennial, Indiana University, the Pressman family, Dale Ellen Leff, and Kimberly and John Simpson. Again, thank you for helping us bring this truly spectacular exhibition to life. The accompanying catalog for this exhibition is a beautiful hardback published by Scala Publishers in association with the Eskenazi Museum of Art. Information and a link to the catalog have been shared in the chat. Now I have the honor of introducing David Brenneman, who is the Wilma E. Kelly Director of the Eskenazi Museum of Art.
Thank you, Keaton. On behalf of the Indiana University Eskenazi Museum of Art, welcome. I'm David Brenneman, and I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our virtual opening for the exhibition, The Art of Character, Highlights from the Glenn Close Costume Collection. As I like to say, exhibition planning and organization is a team sport, and this exhibition was the result of many talented and dedicated individuals working together. I would like to acknowledge the strong partnership with our sister institution, the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design, led by my good colleague, Dean Peg Feynman. Co-curators of the exhibition were Kelly Richardson of the Sage Collection and Galina Olmsted of the Eskenazi Museum. They worked very effectively with a multitude of staff to create the exhibition and all of the accompanying programs, which you can learn more about on the exhibition's website. This includes the presentation of some of Ms. Close's films, which feature her wearing the costumes on display. We also produced this beautiful catalog with scholarly essays by Indiana University faculty. The exhibition's champion was Indiana University's First Lady, Lori Burns McRobbie, whose advocacy and support of the exhibition and the Glenn Close Costume Collection at Indiana University were instrumental to our success. Thank you, Lori. I also want to give a shout out to Jim Nadeau, longtime collaborator and friend of Ms. Close, who guided us and assisted us and advised us throughout the exhibition planning process. And I gather that he may be watching this evening, so thank you, Jim. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and introduce Ms. Glenn Close, who provided the video greeting you will see shortly. To use another sports analogy, Ms. Close's head was in this game. From the very beginning, she attended exhibition planning meetings and was deeply committed to helping us in any way possible. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Glenn Close.
I am deeply honored and thrilled beyond measure to welcome you to the opening of The Art of the Character, the first major exhibition of my costume collection. I started collecting my costumes when I learned that if I didn't, the clothes that had been created by some of the most revered costume designers in the entertainment business would be sold to costume houses, rented out, reworked, and eventually relegated to the scrap heap. I couldn't accept that. I chose to donate my beloved collection to Indiana University because of the magnificent state-of-the-art archival facilities they have there. I love that campus. I love that it is right in the middle of our country. I love that they are as passionate about conserving and curating my collection as I am, and that it will be available to students, faculty, and for display. I'm excited that you will see these pieces close up, See what makes them exquisite examples of a costume designer's art of character, the chosen fabrics, the detail, the sense of fun, the high drama. My sincere thanks to everyone who has made this exhibit possible, the donors, the preparators, and the curators. And special thanks to the Sydney and Lois Eskenazi Museum for giving all my ladies such a beautiful space. I look forward to the day when I can visit in person. Welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you, Glenn Close. This is such an amazing opportunity. And now I have the great privilege of introducing today's featured speaker. Kelly Garrett Richardson is the curator of the Elizabeth Sage Historic Costume Collection in the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Art History from Arizona State University and a Master of Arts in Historic and Cultural Aspects of Clothing and Textiles from Oregon State University. Please join me in welcoming Kelly Garrett Richardson.
Thank you. Let me get my screen up here. One moment. Can everybody see that? Great. So thank you, Keaton, David, and of course, Glenn, for that lovely and incredible introduction. I really appreciate the enthusiasm that everyone has had, and for all of you for attending this lecture tonight and for spending part of your Thursday evening with us. If you can, if it's possible for you, I hope that you will have the opportunity to visit the exhibition in person. The Art of the Character is a partnership between the Elizabeth Sage Historic Costume Collection and the Eskenazi Museum of Art, and it has been my sincere pleasure to collaborate with Galena Olmsted, my co-curator and the assistant curator of American and European art at the museum, as well as the rest of the talented and dedicated staff at the Eskenazi Museum of Art. As you may or may not know, the Sage Collection is a large special collection of fashion and dress established in 1937 and housed in the Eskenazi School of Art, Architecture, and Design. And while we have a new state-of-the-art shared storage facility, we don't have a permanent gallery in which we can regularly share our pieces with the public. So I'm so grateful for this collaboration and hope it's just the beginning of more work together in the future. Tonight, I'm going to give you a little background on the Glenn Close Costume Collection and how it came to be housed at IU. Then we'll walk through the exhibition's themes, characters, and costumes on view. It is our hope that visitors come away from the exhibition with an appreciation of the collaborative nature of costume design, and that audiences both familiar and unfamiliar with Glenn's career are able to find resonance, significance, beauty, and delight in the costumes on display. Award-winning actor Glenn Close holds the art and craft of costuming in high esteem. A brief investigation into her work will reveal numerous articles and interviews with her, really from fairly early on in her career, in which she cites how critical costumes are to her realization of a character. She simply doesn't become her character until she's in that character's clothing. In the fall of 2017, after a visit to IU with faculty and staff and a trip out to that state-of-the-art storage facility, Ms. Close chose the Sage Collection as the home for her costumes. This unique collection spans nearly 40 years and represents over 43 film, television, and theatrical productions. It is a collection that is still growing with her career. The Hillbilly Elegy costumes, comprised of t-shirts, jeans, and tennis shoes, including the prosthetic body parts that facilitated her extraordinary transformation into Mama, arrived on campus earlier this year. And of course, those pieces are quite different from what you'll see tonight. They arrived too late to become part of the exhibition. And just to let you know what you're looking at, this is the title wall as you come into the exhibition. And our signature image there is part of the wonderful dressing scene from the opening of Dangerous Liaisons. Glenn's involvement with IU predates the arrival of her collection on campus. She's been making regular trips to Bloomington since 2013, when Bernice Pesco-Salido, Distinguished Professor of Sociology, joined the Science Advisory Board for Close's nonprofit Bring Change to Mind, a group co-founded by Close 10 years ago that aims to end stigma and discrimination surrounding mental illness. It was this pre-existing relationship and conversations between IU First Lady Laura McRobbie and Glenn Close that led to this significant gift. And of course, once news about this campus donations spread, my voicemail and my inbox blew up with messages from on and off campus, from Indiana, around the country, and even around the world. it was really clear that the local IU community and the public at large were really interested in seeing these beloved and iconic costumes in person. And honestly, we've all consumed a lot of streaming television and film over the past year, and who doesn't want to get a little closer to the processes and people who work together to make all of that happen? Almost immediately upon the collection's arrival on campus, the costumes started infiltrating the classroom. On the right, graduate costume technology students examined undergarments from 1988's Dangerous Liaisons. I firmly believe it was IU's commitment to not just preserving these pieces, that would have happened at any responsible museum with adequate storage facilities and practices, but to our commitment to activating them, bringing them into the classroom as hands-on teaching tools and resources for students and faculty in myriad disciplines that led to Glenn's significant commitment to IU. Her donation didn't consist of costumes only. It also includes some personal wardrobe pieces worn to events like the Golden Globes and the Academy Awards, which of course is awesome because it complements clothing already in the Sage collection by and we have some of the same designers represented as in Close's collection, such as Giorgio Armani, Jeffrey Bean, Vera Wang, Bob Mackie, and Comme des Garçons. We were especially thrilled to receive the incredible nearly 50-pound gold beaded Carolina Herrera gown worn by Glenn to the 2019 Oscars when she was nominated for The Wife. And this incredible gold gown is the only non-costume piece in the exhibition. So how did this collection come to be? It started in 1982 with The World According to Garrett, Glenn Close's first film. It was a seemingly pedestrian but exquisitely hand-constructed costumes of Nurse Jenny Fields that set Glenn upon her collecting path. And as we learned in Glenn's introduction at the end of filming, Glenn just couldn't bear to see these carefully constructed and custom fit, sewn one-of-a-kind costumes designed by Ann Roth and made at famed New York costume atelier Barbara Matera that represented hours of work. She couldn't stand for these costumes to be returned to studio costume stock or to be sold off and remodeled or recut for other productions. She believed that that would be a desecration or obviation of the character that she, the costume designer and director, and the costume makers just worked so hard to build. So thereafter, Close had clauses put into her contracts that gave her the right to keep some of her costumes. It's truly a unique collection. The Victoria and Albert Museum in London has a performance costume department, and there are, of course, museums devoted solely to the performing arts. However, the only similar collection that I'm aware of that is compiled and worn by a single artist is Robert De Niro's costumes and scripts at the Harry Ransom Center at UT Austin. And I do have to give a quick shout out to theater faculty Heather Milam and Linda Pisano, who really helped me navigate and introduced me to the world of costume design. I'm really a fashion and dress historian. So this was all a new learning experience for me as well. And I'm just so pleased to be able to share it with you. So to organize this exhibition, Glenn's input was received, and significant characters from her career and the costumes that helped her embody them were selected from the collection. Through the pieces, the story of the creative collaborations between directors, costume designers, makers, and actors that bring a character to life could be told. The art of the character spotlights 54 costumes worn by 11 characters across 14 productions and spans more than 30 years. Some of them you may know and love, others might send you scrambling to Netflix. This past Tuesday, IU News at Bloomington released a great list of where you can stream some of the films included in this exhibition. Organizing the exhibition was not easy. The single thread that really holds all these pieces together is Glenn herself. And the variety and diversity of time periods, genres, and personalities on view is proof positive of the creativity, skill, and versatility of the actor and the costume designers, each of whom have developed looks for a wide range of very different kinds of characters throughout their careers. Our first theme is Costuming the Contemporary, which addresses the unique task of designing in one's own era, how a designer selects looks from an overwhelming barrage of contemporary images to create characters that endure over time. Fatal Attraction costume designer Ellen Mirajnik stated, quote, "Remember, in 20 years, the designer's work in a contemporary film will be history and reference of that time and place. We are all creating stories with characters that live on," unquote. Costume designers working on films set in the present day create images that therefore become part of our collective visual memory of that point in time. Sometimes costume designers select off-the-rack pieces, such as the iconic black leather coat from Fatal Attraction. Other scenes in that same film may require custom fit and sewn garments to achieve the director's particular vision for the character. In 1985, Glenn portrayed attorney Teddy Barnes in Jagged Edge, who falls in love with her client, a handsome Jeff Bridges, who is on trial for murder. This film was made at a time when the numbers of women entering careers in law, medicine, and business was sharply on the rise. And what did these women wear to work? They wore power suits, characterized by strong shoulders and nipped-in waist that conferred power but didn't obscure the wearer's femininity. Looks like these, created by costume designer Anne Roth, were everywhere in the last half of the 1980s, influencing the dress of television characters like LA Law's Susan Day. Our next character in Costuming the Contemporary is Sunny Von Bulow, the ill-fated heiress who spent the last years of her life in a coma while her husband, Klaus Von Bulow, who was played by Jeremy Irons and received an Academy Award for that role, was found guilty of her attempted murder. That decision was later overturned, the reversal of fortune referred to in the title. The comatose Sunny tells her story through haunting flashbacks in the 1990 film, revealing a once vibrant younger heiress at parties and balls, and then years later, an unhappy wife who spent much of her time in a drug-induced haze, padding around her Newport, Rhode Island mansion in exquisitely made silk lingerie. Van Bulow's looks were designed by Judiana Makovsky, known for her designs for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, The Hunger Games, and a number of movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. One of Glenn's iconic roles is, of course, Alex Forrest from Fatal Attraction. A cultural phenomenon upon its 1987 release, the film was viewed as a cautionary tale for married men. Costume designer Ellen Mraznik's repeated use of light and dark contrast in Alex's wardrobe throughout the film materializes the character's instability. Demonized at the time as a crazed, revenge-seeking other woman, Close's character now evokes empathy as a more nuanced understanding of Alex as a victim of abuse and mental illness emerges, aided by such organizations as Close's own Bring Change to Mind. And if you haven't seen Fatal Attraction, for those of you who devoured Bridgerton during the pandemic, you have already enjoyed the incredible work of costume designer Ellen Mraznik, whose lengthy resume also includes Maleficent, TV series The Nick, and the Liberace biopic Behind the Candelabra, as well as Wall Street. Our next theme is crafting identity, which really pertains to the entire show. But we sort of had to create categories so viewers can make sense and we can organize a show in some way. Crafting identity explores how costume designers use color, pattern, fit, and silhouette to express or conceal a character's true nature, and how a character's wardrobe, along with hair, makeup, and prosthetics, allows a performer to fully immerse themselves into a role, making themselves unrecognizable as anyone but the character at hand. In the films included in this section, the characters consciously use their clothing to deliberately project a chosen identity. In Close's first film role in 1982's adaptation of the John Irving novel, The World According to Garp, single mother and nurse Jenny Fields raises her son, who grows up to be a novelist and who, inspired by him, writes a memoir and becomes a feminist hero, icon, and activist. Through the latter part of the movie, she wears her nurse's uniform almost exclusively, projecting an air of authority, practicality, and compassion. This was the first film project together for Anne Roth and Glenn Close. And over, Close speaks so eloquently about the impact this costume had on her. In Glenn Close's titular role as Albert Nobbs, her female identity is hidden beneath a flattening corset, overcoat, and bowler hat. Costumes by Pierre-Yves Guéraud reflect Nobbs' socio-economic status as a butler and waiter in turn-of-the-century Dublin who could not afford a tailored suit in both a monetary and psychological sense. Her dream of opening her own shop meant that she scrimped and saved her wages. Her physical secret meant she could never subject herself to the tailor's tape measure and chalk. The art of the character includes the suit, as well as Albert's cobbled together corset with worn suspender straps and the blue floral print dress worn to the beach, in which Albert, in a skirt for the first time in many years, breaks out into a joyful run. Glenn collaborated with Garrett to figure out Albert's look, knowing that this character's clothing, because of their socioeconomic status, shouldn't fit terribly well. They experimented with both too long and too short pants at Angel's costume house in London, finally settling on the slightly comical Charlie Chaplin-esque effect of too long pants. A remake of the 1970 film of the same name, The Stepford Wives, is a 2004 piece of distinctly 21st century feminist satire that veers much closer to comedy than the original. In the fictional town of Stepford, the women are impeccably dressed for every occasion, including an aerobic exercise class where closest character, Claire Wellington, dressed in pink and white gingham, capri pants with the matching blouse, headband, and heels, leads the housewives in a routine based on domestic chores, calling out, "Let's all be washing machines." Costume designer Anne Roth dressed all the Stepford women in hyper-feminine, softly colored ensembles with emphasized waists, a look she likened to living paper dolls. We feel fortunate to feature several characters dressed by the venerable Anne Roth in the art of the character. Even more of Anne Roth's work is on the larger collection. On Oscar night, less than 2 weeks ago, she won her second Academy Award for costume design for her work in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the age of 89, and I think that's totally inspirational. The next section is bringing history to life. The costume drama, a production set in an era believed to be more beautiful and glamorous than one's own, remains eternally a film goer's favorite. Historic costumes are a product of sometimes extensive research into a time period and place, as well as costume designers also consult extant garments in museum and private collections. Under the guidance of a director, a costume designer may or may not make historical accuracy a priority, but will strive to further the narrative and director's vision with characters whose visual self is real and relatable for audiences. Here's close as Eleanor of Aquitaine in the made-for-TV retelling of The Lion in Winter, the 1968 Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole movie, which was itself a version of the 1966 play. Unlike that iconic film, this telling of the story of a scheming family opens with Glenn on horseback in armor designed by Irish costume designer Consolata Boyle, shortly after her failed rebellion against her husband. This scene offers the viewer a glimpse of the formidable spirit of this legendary queen before her lengthy imprisonment, a prologue to the 1183 Christmastime gamesmanship between her and her husband, Henry II, as they vie to select an heir. Close and Boyle first worked together in 1996 on Mary Riley. And I think what's really interesting about this costume, it has the appearance of chainmail. It looks very heavy, but it is actually very, very, very light. And what looks like metal are actually splatter printed sequins. And it's really quite an extraordinary and beautiful costume. Totally shifting gears. We now have the Sarah Plain and Tall Hallmark television film series made between 1991 and 1999, in which Close played a coastal Maine woman growing into her role as a Kansas farm wife in the early 20th century. Over 3 films exploring themes of home, family, and belonging, Sarah experiences love, marriage, childbirth, drought, separation, and the return of her husband's absent father. Costume designer Van Broughton Ramsey found inspiration for the character's modest, practical wardrobe in period photographs, magazines, and mail order catalogs. These more subdued costumes, also made at the New York atelier of Barbara Matera, feature some absolutely beautiful linen and wool fabrics. When describing herself to Jacob so that he can find her at the train station upon her arrival in Kansas in the first movie, Sarah tells Jacob, played by Christopher Walken, to whom she's been movie married at least twice, to look for a tall, plain woman. Glenn is decidedly not tall. IMDb reports her height as 5'5". So Ramsey made a name for himself when he won an Emmy for his costume work in the 1990 made-for-television miniseries Lonesome Dove. And so what he did to create an illusion of height for Close was to repeatedly use vertical pleats and stripes to make her appear taller than she actually is in real life. And of course, we are here to everyone's favorite Dangerous Liaisons. So Academy Award winning costume designer James Atchison received an Oscar for 1988's Dangerous Liaisons, in which Close played the Marquis de Merteuil, the scheming aristocrat, former lover and rival of John Malkovich's Belmont. Their mutual devotion to manipulation and seduction as a means of wielding power binds the two, even as their plot unravels and their betrayals multiply. Construction of one's social self, status, and appearance in 18th century France are significant themes running through the film, and costuming really nearly becomes a character itself. Really, despite director Stephen Frear's attempt to focus the focus the action on the characters' faces, the costumes won over, and it's a film revered ever since its release as a wonderful example of historic costuming. Of course, we wish we had every costume worn by Glenn in this film, but we are so thrilled to share with you the brilliant yellow gold traveling ensemble with the black buttons and bound buttonholes, the memorable blue and pink sack back gown here on the screen. And we also have the blue and the gold corset featured on the title image, as well as the cage style panniers, which appeared on screen. And then the muslin panniers, which heroically were not seen on screen, but supported the skirts underneath, creating that distinctly horizontal 18th century silhouette. James Atchison himself is an incredibly versatile designer who created the very, very, very long striped scarf of the original Doctor Who, as well as costumes for The Last Emperor and Spider-Man. The final theme is making fantasy real, and it explores the creation of fictional characters who may or may not have known histories and visual iconographies, but whom, with the costume designer's creative eye, attain new visual heights of splendor that still allows an actor to physically play a role. So costume designers are at their most creative when they are tasked with bringing the imagined and fantastical to life. They push silhouettes, shapes, materials, and textures to new limits. And characters like Cruella de Vil from 101 and 102 Dalmatians have become iconic characters known for their unique wardrobes. Cruella de Vil is the ultimate cold-hearted fashion plate and wears spotted, striped, feathered, and scaled outfits that reflect her passion for cruelty and excess. For characters with origins in other media, such as the intergalactic commander Nova Prime from Marvel Studios' Guardians of the Galaxy, costume designers must fulfill expectations for familiar and beloved characters in ways that still adhere to the existing story's narrative. Believe me, there would be fans who really would be upset by deviations, and also allow these characters the unique and creative movements that are sometimes required of their characters. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Glenn Close entered the realm of superhero movies, and she has recently stated that she'd love to be in more, so stay tuned, maybe that will happen. She entered the realm of superhero films as Nova Prime, Chief Commander of the Nova Corps, the military and police force charged with peacekeeping in the galaxy. Alexander Byrne designed uniforms for Close and the other Nova Corps members based on those character images in existence since 1979. To create the real-life costume of the Nova Corps commander, designer Byrne fused two heavy power-stretched fabrics, teal on one side, red on the other, into one sleek neoprene-like material with enough body to support the stand-away jacket collar and the shoulder flanges, but still maintain details of the crisp tailored costume that permitted her to move around. Some of Byrne's other projects include Thor, Mary Queen of Scots, and the 2020 recently released version of Emma, for which she received an Academy Award nomination. So I'm so proud that we have designers, as well as Glenn Close, who have been recognized by professionals and their peers as some of the best in their field. Cruella de Vil made her debut in the 1956 children's book, The 101 Dalmatians, which Disney brought to the big screen in 1991 in the successful animated film. Rail thin with the fashion model's hips forward slouch and skull-like face with razor sharp cheekbones, Cruella was Disney's first contemporary villain. To the dismay and delight of dog lovers and viewers 35 years later, Close's flesh and blood Cruella emerged as an enthralling and memorable screen presence with the help of Academy Award-winning designer Anthony Powell. Here, Glenn wears one of her 101 Dalmatians costumes, which is included in Art of the Character, to the film's New York premiere in 1996, which shocked the press and pleased fans to no end. Glenn has said several times how much she dislikes dressing for the red carpet. She's really just not a fashion person. She's much more comfortable in a uniform or a costume. She doesn't care about jewelry, calling herself an unadorned woman. But I think on this night, she wore that bracelet, that necklace, and that big fur coat pretty spectacularly. In my opinion, the reframing of Cruella de Vil as a fashion designer instead of just an eccentric, fur-obsessed fashionista was a stroke of genius and an incredible opportunity for costume designer Anthony Powell. Her villainy was raised to new heights as she became not just a consumer, but a creator of fashion. One of the most important aspects of the entire Glenn Close costume collection that is visible in the Art of the Character is the completeness of some of the ensembles. Costumes like the feather-trimmed python dress in the middle of your screen and the beaded pinstripe suit worn in the first encounter with Cruella on screen are so powerful, in fact, because of the head-to-toe details, the accessories that give life to the costumes, and they also reflect the ferocious eye for detail of Anthony Powell. And if Close hadn't saved all those costume elements, it's likely that the jewelry, hats, muffs, shoes, and gloves would have been separated and sold off or remodeled or recycled into other productions. The attention to the most minute detail of the costumes is incredible, and to me serves as a reminder about how fragmented individual pieces in a fashion and dress collection can be, and that they are always combined with many other wardrobe elements in our everyday self-presentation. In 102 Dalmatians, Powell soared to new heights, creating 16 individual costumes for Cruella de Vil compared to 6 looks for Close in the original. Every single costume in the sequel is an inside joke, dripping with wit and irony. In a 2000 interview, 102 Dalmatians director Kevin Lima said that costumes were, quote, among the most important attributes in telling Cruella's story, end quote. The film opens with an imprisoned but reformed Cruella who has undergone fur aversion therapy while serving a 3-year sentence. So the former fashion designer, of course, wouldn't be caught dead in a standard orange jumpsuit. Powell put Close in the most glamorous prison uniform ever, constructed of pieced stripes of heavy natural linen and black cotton and silk velveteen, cut into an A-line Jackie Kennedy coat dress, topped by a pillbox hat bearing her inmate number 6660 in hand-stitched glass beads. Outdoing himself almost even, Powell designed over-the-top Chanel-style handcuffs and shackles, their gold links interrupted by faux pearls and crystal-encrusted large orbs. And you can see a little bit of those in the case on the lower right of your screen. Sadly, Mr. Powell passed away this past April at the age of 85. We are so pleased to be able to be doing this exhibition now, and really feel like we are paying tribute to his work and his career. Mr. Powell was also known for his work on the Indiana Jones sequels, The Avengers, and Tess. Powell and Close first collaborated in 1994 on Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical stage production of Sunset Boulevard, for which he received a Tony Award. Those costumes are also part of the Glenn Close costume collection at IU, and they are truly spectacular. So we hope, of course, to have an occasion to show those in the future. And also wondering, she is supposed to begin filming a film version of that as well soon. So we'll see how closely those films adhere to what we have in our collection. Visitors to the exhibition can view a 20-minute video conversation between Glenn and Anthony Powell, recorded a couple years ago, where they discuss how he got started in the business and their work together over the years. Powell also cleverly created 2 coat dresses for Close that evoke the voluminousness of a fur garment in alternative materials for a fashion lover who shunned furs. In the right, on your right-hand side, bubble wrap of varying sizes has been cut into widening panels, stitched together into a swing-style coat, while black and clear DeVille logo plastic circles are gathered into ruffles, stacked to form the sleeves and collar. The coat is it's plastic, but it's incredibly heavy. It's fully fabric lined with snap closures. So even though it's made out of plastic, it's made just as you would a regular fashion garment. The coat dress on the left is the only time you'll see Cruella as her alter ego Ella in pink. White shadow striped silk organza is covered in hundreds of silk flowers and soft and feminine pastel lines. The set of 3 black and white houndstooth suits demonstrates closest transformation from the good Ella to the bad Cruella by the chimes of Big Ben in a key scene. Her Chanel-style collarless houndstooth jacket begins to sparkle. Her skirt and jacket lengthen, and trims become chunkier. Ornaments on her necklace darken and become more toothed and jagged. The formerly natural shoulders sharpen. Finally, the suit becomes entirely a suit of glass, the houndstooth pattern completely recreated in silver and black bugle beads. So it's really just an extraordinary collection. So we really love this trio of costumes as a demonstration of how important clothing is to realizing the character inside. That's my exploration through the exhibit. There's really so much to see, and all the pieces really bear a very, very close look. They're really each and every one is extraordinary, and sometimes extraordinary for different reasons. And I want to talk about that the concept of collaboration permeates the exhibition. The costume designer, doesn't dream up a character's look on their own, but begins with the script and the director's vision. The culture, geography, and time period in which a production is set, and the personality traits of individual characters are taken into consideration. Approved designs are handed off to costume technicians, cutters, drapers, beaters, milliners, and metalsmiths, who all work together to bring a costume to life. And the way a costume fits and feels on a performer's body can affect the way they move, sit, and stand. Glenn's love of the art of costuming was recounted many times by those who worked at Barbara Matero's costume shop, where she would walk through the workshop in the finished costume, giving her thanks and appreciation to each and everyone who worked on a costume, which sometimes, of course, involved hundreds of hours. A few weeks ago, fashion and costume students across the globe had the chance to talk with Jenny Bevan, costume designer for Cruella. Now we're all going to be really looking out for this new film, the film that stars Emma Stone, which I believe comes out May 28th, and is supposed to tell Cruella's origin story. So Jenny told a student in this Zoom conversation, if you want to go out there and do your own thing, be a fashion designer or a fine artist. If you want to collaborate with dozens of talented people, all pulling together to tell a story, go into costume design. And honestly, exhibits are created in the same way. They take a lot of people. First of all, Sage Collections assistant Emily Russelaski did a huge amount of the object preparation and mounting, coming up with some really clever and resourceful techniques to make these costumes look as fabulous as they do. Gary Arov and their volunteers who helped with wig making and styling, former curator and director and now volunteer dresser Kate Rawald, grad students Maddie Bell, Emily Chase, and Tori Gleason. My F402 students helped dress and mount the costumes, and SOAD faculty Ryan Mandel and Deborah Christensen helped with finishing some of the extraneous prop elements that we had to recreate in order to exhibit the collections safely. And I definitely, again, specifically want to say thank Jim Nadeau, who, answered endless questions and is a bottomless well of information, support, and for whom I believe has become a dear friend to everybody in this project. I have one last thing to show you. We'll see how this goes. Another collaboration that took place. Let's see. Whoops. Hang on. Sorry, all. Eek. Is a project that we did with the 3D visualization research technology, which is a part of UITS at IU. And they took our understructures for the blue dress for Dangerous Liaisons and then created this 3D visualization. So you can see exactly how we build up the layers to create this look. It's very different if you have seen dressing videos of, say, historical reenactors who we'll talk about the layers that they put on to create a costume. We do things a little bit differently when we're creating a specific look for a mannequin. So this was a really fun exercise, and to be able to demonstrate exactly how something like this blue dress is built up layer after layer. And you would be probably shocked to know that this elaborate costume is honestly one of the easiest to dress. It is not difficult at all. So I don't know what else. I'm happy to take some questions, and really hope that all of you will be able to come to campus and see. I love to show these pictures, but there is nothing like seeing the real thing in person, and you have until November 15th to do so. So I think we all need a little joy. We need a little beauty after this really difficult year. And I think this exhibition has a lot of really broad appeal, from people who are Glenn Close fans to movie fans, costume fans, and so on. So I hope you'll take the time out of your summer or fall to join us.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for talking with us today. And I appreciate all of your insight into this exhibition. So many award-winning designers. I'm sure our audience has a lot of questions to ask. We invite everyone to submit any questions you do have into the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. We've got a couple already, so I will get started. I guess first off, is the 3D visualization tool available for the public to interact with?
At this point, it isn't, but I imagine that is the eventual goal. So I'll be working with that team to make it available in some way, for sure. So just stay tuned.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm sure the museum will put out some updates when that is ready for the public. We've got a question from Alexandra. As Close's waist is so thin when she plays Cruella, was there a corset worn under each of Cruella's costumes? If so, was the corset actually part of the construction of the costume, or was it a separate part that Close had to put on?
Great question. So she is corseted during both productions, and we have those corsets. We don't use undergarments that are sort of our permanent collection pieces to create the appropriate shapes. So that would be a lot of stress on that garment. We just, gosh, there's so many to choose from. So at this point, we just chose not to display those corsets that she wore, but she definitely was corseted. She talks about how Anthony Powell really challenged her. I mean, between extra high stiletto heels, corsets, incredibly heavy furs. She, I think, rose to the occasion all the time. And, you think about clothing affecting the way she felt, maybe some of that discomfort and difficulty, maybe made her a little bit angry and made her even more villainous of a Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, I'm sure it definitely enhanced the character in that way. Let's see, we've got a couple questions coming in. Let's see, Sarah asks, you said the blue dress was very easy to put together on the mannequin. Were any costumes difficult to prepare for exhibition?
Yes, definitely. And if you'll give me a second, I will pull that. Let me see if I can find an image of that one. Whether you can or can't tell, some of the costumes are really extraordinarily, they are so heavy, honestly. Especially some of the 101, 102 Dalmatians furs. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen here. One moment. So this costume right in the middle, it's the kind of the finale costume for 102 Dalmatians. She gets baked into a cake in this particular costume, but that what looks like kind of a coat is sort of like sort of like an enormous fur shrug, so it doesn't really have armholes. We didn't, it's on a mannequin that has an extended arm out. It's a little bit difficult to tell from this view, but the only way we could get that fur cape-like piece to stay on that mannequin was to have an outstretched arm, and it took 3 of us to wrestle that on. Another difficult piece is not a costume, but her 47-pound Wes Gordon for Carolina Herrera gold Oscar gown. It's incredibly heavy and not, not at all easy to dress. In fact, we dressed everything upstairs in a room in the art museum that they so kindly donated to us for the last couple of months. That dress is so large and heavy, we knew we couldn't do that up there. So we had to dress it kind of in situ down in the gallery. And so much respect for Glenn. I cannot imagine navigating something like that, sitting and moving around. It's just boggles the mind. So, it's not just costumes, it's it's sort of the social function wear as well.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't imagine walking the red carpet with that. Let's see, Petra asks, did the wigs accompany the costumes or did they have to be made to complete the looks?
Great question. Thank you, Petra. Stage staff and a dedicated team of wig volunteers pulled from SOAD faculty, theater, drama, and contemporary dance faculty, some graduate students, some undergraduates, all came together in a number of weekend workshops and then some extra times putting these wigs together. So we are, I love the collaborative nature of this project. I think it's just an awesome feature of the advantage of being part of a huge organization like Indiana University is you have all these really talented people, sometimes right under your nose. There is a Gary Arab who is a librarian. He's actually a former wig designer, a hair and makeup Broadway person. And so he came and sat with us a few sessions and got us started on these wigs. And we all, through some tears and stitching and lots of hairspray and bobby pins and cutting, really spent hours and hours and hours on these wigs. And there was a while where I didn't think it was going to work. And I think they look really awesome. So I'm really proud of that. I am praying every night that they stay on the heads. We want them to not move at all. But yeah, it was a really extraordinary experience. I'm not sure if Glenn has the wigs or not. I know she feels really strongly about like the wigs that she wore for Albert Nobbs and Hillbilly Elegy, that they're very personal. So yeah, I'm not sure if she's got the wigs for that or not. It would have made things a lot easier, but it was really an extraordinary experience doing that. I have so much respect for people who have those skills now, because it is not as easy as doing your own hair at all.
Wow, I'm sure. They do look fantastic, and I'm so glad that there were so many people able to help with that project. Let's see. Ashley asked, what was the most exciting accessory that the students made to replace a missing original?
Gosh, and actually, to clarify, the accessories weren't missing. They just posed problems that, as responsible curators, collections managers, we couldn't figure out a way to put them on the mannequin without damaging them. So, if they were our own earrings, we would just break off the back and glue those babies right on the ears or something, but we didn't have that option. We consulted, so I would say, boy, we had a couple of pairs of earrings 3D printed in the labs here. Ryan Mandel helped us out, who's faculty in the School of Art, Architecture, and Design, to recreate some shapes that we took the originals down, did some measurements, and then they 3D printed them. And Emily, our collections assistant, wonderfully got those painted, and they wound up using screw eyes and rare earth magnets to stick those replicant earrings on. And then another really cool project was the Python gloves. So there's a wonderful Python print dress that she wears. And as you can tell, almost all ensembles have gloves. I think in the first movie, I think they were thinking that Cruella, to be, you know, this cruel person, needed to have really long claw-like nails. And Glenn said their hands, she thought her hands were too sort of square, plain, and practical to make it work. So they came up with this really great solution of gloves with big, you know, fake nails attached. And so this python print dress has wonderful matching fabric gloves, but, you know, putting glove hands on a person is very different than putting gloves on a stiff mannequin hand. And we couldn't, just couldn't make it work without damaging the gloves. So what we did is that I took the original gloves over, and graduate students in graphic design scanned the gloves and then manipulated the file, got it to the right contrast, size, and color. And then another textile student, graduate student, printed out that pattern on some Lycra. And then Deb Christensen, and fashion design professor in SOAD, went ahead and made those up for us. So again, there's so many people. This exhibit wouldn't look as good as it had without all this, you know, all those extra people helping along, because again, the accessories make the whole costumes. They really wouldn't have the same impact without them. So I'm glad that we found all kinds of really interesting workarounds to keep the integrity of the costume as a whole.
Brilliant. Yeah, the details really do make the exhibit, and, you know, the costumes. Karen asks, are the costumes stored flat or on hangers?
Most of them are stored flat. There are a few pieces that are so big they just don't fit into any boxes that we have. So I would say, you know, 98% of things are stored in boxes. Some costume elements, like behind the column, you see the really gorgeous flame ensemble there. I don't know if there's any better. I uploaded just some extra installation images. I don't know if you can, well, you can see the edge of that. That's an overskirt, and it's completely lined in ombre dyed ostrich feathers, and it is huge as well. So that element of the costume is hung in an unusual way, but the rest of it is stored flat. So really flat most of the way, in some taller and larger boxes than we usually have. So that is Glenn's care for her collection and the attention paid to it, and the professional way in which it was organized and stored, greatly in an indirect way really made this exhibition happen. Because if it had come to us and we had to, you know, puzzle together all the different components and figure out how to store them, this never would have happened. We would have still be doing that now. So the fact that she took such good professional care, which is it's not cheap. Textiles, costumes are needy objects. They need a lot from those who care for them. Just really, you know, it's a testament to her devotion, and allowed us to, you know, get these here and get them processed and kind of hit the ground running, even though we were obviously delayed by COVID for, you know, a year.
Of course. Let's see, we have so many questions. I hope we can get to all of them, but let's see. I think Sarah is next. What's your favorite piece and why?
Yeah, so I uploaded. So my favorite piece here is, although, you know, I'm like anybody else who works with a lot of objects, it kind of changes day to day. Today, my favorite piece is this dragon suit that's right here on the edge. I just think it is so incredibly spectacular. It's got this undulating beaded dragon down the tailcoat that follows the contours of the as the coat back narrows to the ground and ends in this sort of barbed tail. It's got a beautiful mask and hat that go with it. In this case, the fingernails are not glued on plastic nails like some of them, but wonderful kind of Chinese style long pierced and carved metal fingernails. It's got that beautiful muff with a dragon face. It's just, it's gorgeous. It's just an incredible feat of costuming. And so today, that's my favorite. Ask me tomorrow, I'll probably have a different one.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a must see in person one. It looks very cool here, but I'm sure it's just brilliant. Let's see, so many questions still. Um, wow. Tina asks, how are the costumes cleaned?
Well, they're never, going to go to the dry cleaner or the washing machine. Really, what we would do is lint brush, vacuuming, maybe brush with a soft paintbrush to get off dust in certain ways. The way they're stored and cared for, they shouldn't get dirty. Certainly, these costumes have some evidence of wear. They were involved in some productions and worn. So in some ways, some of those evidence of wear are actually really cool because it almost verifies their authenticity. So they really wouldn't be cleaned. They'll just be very, very carefully stored so they don't need cleaning at any time.
Brilliant. We'll get to a couple more questions hopefully later if that's all right with you, Kelly.
Sure.
But I'm just gonna give our couple closing words just because we're getting close to time. So thank you again so much, Kelly. This has been such a brilliant talk. We invite you all to experience this exhibition in person. The museum is open Thursdays to Sundays from noon to 5 p.m. with extended hours on Saturdays to 7 p.m. In order to maintain social distancing, a limited number of guests will be admitted to Art of the Character, highlights from the Glenn Close costume collection at a time. We strongly encourage advance reservations for this special exhibition to minimize possible wait times as walk-in availability may be limited. I'm sure this is going to be a popular one, so please check the website for reservation information. We hope you'll consider joining us for more programs during this exhibition. This Saturday, May 8th, gather the family together for a playful experience inspired by the exhibition. We'll offer an hour of playful improvisation-based games. This event is designed for families with kids aged 5 through 12. All are welcome. Treat yourself to a self-care Saturday. Sorry. Join our museum art therapist, Lauren, and drama therapist, Michelle Yandon, for a fun workshop on May 15th, exploring the characters that live within us. Or treat yourself to a Pride Month self-care Saturday on June 12th. Gather with LGBTQ plus peers and allies for a restorative workshop with art making and self-exploration. We'll be exploring themes of identity and transformation inspired by this exhibition.
It's 8 o'clock.
Sorry. And Glenn Close advocacy for mental health. All ages and skill levels are welcome. Then for Welcome Week, when students return to campus, we're excited to celebrate this exhibition in person with 2 events. Drop in for Culture Fest Arts Trail celebration on August 19th and unwind with art and music, or choose your own gallery adventure and then enjoy a treat at the cafe. Or celebrate with us August 21st with live music and refreshments on the terrace. This fall, explore the exhibition at First Thursday after hours in September, October, and November. Enjoy live music and choose your own gallery adventures. Join us for a fascinating conversation with costume makers moderated by Heather Milam. She'll speak with Catherine Marshall, Polly Kenny, and Eleanor Wolf about the making of these costumes in the Art of the Character exhibition. You can explore mental health from multiple perspectives, plus try hands-on activities in a conversation with an art therapist, a social worker, a counselor, and the museum's art-based wellness experiences manager. On Self-Care Saturday, let's talk about mental health on September 18th, inspired by Glenn Close's advocacy for mental health. We also invite you to a live conversation with designers Holly Poe Durbin and Bonnie Kruger in Art of the Character and Roth's designs this fall. Everything we do here at the Indiana University Eskenazi Museum of Art is made possible by Philanthropy. Thank you to our friends who have made gifts to our annual fund and special exhibitions fund. Their support enables us to share exhibitions and free programs like the one you've experienced today. If you've enjoyed this event or are just excited for the show as we are, please visit the museum's website to make a donation. Gifts big and small impact all of our students and broader communities. Thank you for everyone who has participated today. If you would like to share your experience, you can tell us in an easy survey as you exit this webinar. So from all of us at the Eskenazi Museum of Art, take care and have a good evening. And I think we have time for a couple more questions if you're willing to stay, but I'm sure I'm going to give people a minute to filter out if they'd like.
Yeah, I don't mind answering a couple. That's fine.
Brilliant. Okay, let's see. Oh, there are more than when I left. Brilliant. So how does Indiana University, the facilities, take care of heavily embroidered costumes like the Cruella dragon suit or the Chanel style piece?
They're stored flat in boxes that are, the correct size to minimize folding. We pad out folds with acid-free tissue paper. Sometimes use muslin, and really just make sure not to layer something. Sometimes just because of space, there might be more than one costume in a box. We obviously would put the most heavy element on the bottom. So really each and every costume has its own storage requirements. So just really, being aware when you're getting into the box of what you're going to encounter is really important, as far as different trims and beading, or if there's loose like fringe or something like that. So really just, being aware, your standard, every museum, tons of acid-free tissue paper and acid-free boxes.
Brilliant, thank you. Let's see, we've got so many more. Let's see, what percentage of Close's collection that is actually housed at IU is on display in this exhibit?
Whoa, okay, let's see. It's hard. We've talked about numbers all the time, but so I can say, so you break it down, there are 800 costume elements. So it's not individual costumes. I mean, but a costume could be one piece, or, it might be a single dress. Another costume, like some of the ones you see for Cruella de Vil, might have, multiple pieces, up to 15 pieces. Man, so I've never thought about the percentage wise of what is on. I'm going to have to think about that. I mean, it's less, 25, 30%. I really don't. That's a really hard question to answer. There are many more treasures that are in boxes that, we hope to share with the public in the future at some kind of exhibition, but know that all those pieces that are still being stored are accessible and with permission, and only via the people who work at the Sage Collection, but they are, available for students and faculty for research. They can come, they make appointments, an appropriate amount of time, they can take a look. That's why they're here. They're not going to be, stuck in boxes and languish on the shelves for years and years and years. It was, the reason she gave us this gift was to make it available for these pieces to have lives in classrooms. So I think that just because they're not on view doesn't mean they're not being seen.
Brilliant. Kind of a follow-up, I suppose. Are there any pieces that you did have to leave out that you wish you could have included?
Yeah, there are a few pieces that did get kind of taught. Anyone who works on an exhibition know that you always gather more than you need, or like writing a paper, use a big scoop, filter out later. So a few things were eliminated from the exhibition a couple of weeks ago, but that's fine. The things that I'm really passionate about sharing at some point, there's two sets. It is all of the Sunset Boulevard costumes, and those are really different because they are for theater and not for film. So there's some really interesting construction details and that are really unique to theater that I just learned about, since I'm not a theater person, to facilitate those really quick changes. And then there's some great costumes from from an 1980s movie called Maxie. that has a time travel element. And there's just the most fun, like 1920s-esque Cleopatra style costume that is dynamite, as well as some evening wear. In fact, the image that is on the cover of the catalog that's published with to accompany the exhibition has one of the maxi, a beautiful white kind of late 20s, early 30s evening gown. So I regret that those aren't in here, but you know, there's always a future. So this is not the last of Glenn at IU for sure.
Brilliant. I think we have 4 more questions, if that's okay with you. And many comments saying how cool your job is. So I wholeheartedly agree. Congratulations. Let's see. Were there any details on the costumes that you didn't realize when you first saw them on screen?
Gosh, thank you. I feel like it's, you know, the Anthony Powell Dalmatians happy hour here, but those just all have so much interesting, you know, interesting details. So I'm sorry, I'm racking my brain trying to think of something that is not even just simply like some of the lingerie from Reversal of Fortune is really beautifully made out of some exquisite silk fabric with very fine pleating, you know, really fine pleating that is gorgeous. You know, it's incredible that it would be made just to be seen on screen for what could be just a couple of minutes. Sometimes things get, you know, scenes get cut entirely. So someone might spend hours and hours on something and nobody ever sees it. So we do have a couple of those things as well that for whatever reason weren't used in the final cut of a film.
Well, I'm glad that we get to see them, even if larger audiences didn't. Let's see, we've got 3 to go. So what was the thought process behind the way that each costume was displayed, like mannequin pose and all that?
Yeah, so that's kind of a standard thing that we have to think about. So we always, you want to think about the time period that you are representing, that the piece comes from. This is a little bit different because obviously these are not real, you know, 1700s garments. They are not real, you know, 1910s pieces. But we had to think about in the same way to have those large, the large mannequins that had the Cruella de Vil costumes and the Reversal of Fortune costumes, you know, putting those Kansas Prairie dresses on those would not, you know, those linen ensembles would not have looked right at all. So you really have to consider the time period and the physical stance. People don't move the same way through history. You know, certain kinds of bodily postures and gestures are more appropriate to some time periods than others. So you really have to pick the body to fit, you know, to fit the same time period. So that was a big consideration. Then you also have to think about if you do want to show off some element of a costume or not. Maybe you need an outstretched hand, you need legs in a certain pose. So there's all kinds of different reasons you might choose to use one thing or another. Mannequins are really expensive, really nice ones. So that's why they're, you know, we don't have 55, you know, expensive giant mannequins, because it's an enormous expense. Some kind of the dress forms that we used for Sarah Plain and Tall and Dangerous Liaisons have been in our collection for a long time. They're very versatile. They could be padded. You don't have a head, so you don't have to worry about you know, kind of representations of certain ethnicities or color. You know, they're so flexible, and those are really great, but they don't really have the impact. And of course, they couldn't carry all those cool accessories. So that's why we want hands and heads and everything to be able to wear some of those accessories as well.
Brilliant. Let's see, Nicole asked what kind of organization Glenn actually used for the collection prior to it being donated.
Well, let's see, she just had everything in like a FileMaker Pro database, and then they were able to export that into an Excel sheet, and then we were able to import it into our Past Perfect database. So yeah, her record keeping was a little bit different, different than ours. She didn't have everything numbered, so that's a real significant difference. So her collection was organized according to the box or the hanger that the pieces were in. And we go like a little further. Anybody in a museum, you know, every piece has a unique identification number, kind of like the call number in a library for a library book. So that's how we ended up organizing it. So everything received a special unique number. And yeah, we just transferred her data and added our fields to it.
Awesome, brilliant. So we're gonna wrap up right after this one. But where are all of these items stored when they're not on display? Is there a dedicated building for the Sage collection?
No, I wish there was, but we are really fortunate to be part of the ALF, which stands for ALF, stands for the Auxiliary Library Facility. And recently, a couple of years ago, IU expanded the existing ALF, which was really for books, documents, paper objects, and they built an object storage facility. So it's great. It is just on the edge of campus, and it has, you know, state-of-the-art climate control, security, and is only accessed by, you know, very few people who need to be there. The Eskenazi Museum of Art also has storage out there. They're on the first floor. We're on the third floor. Yeah, it's after we've bounced around, and the Sage collection has moved to various places around campus, and we've, I think, finally landed in the appropriate kind of storage. So we're very, very, very fortunate that the trustees of IU chose to build that building. And again, so many kind of serendipitous things happened with the Glen Close donation. If we hadn't known that we were going to move into this new storage area when that was being built when this donation happened, I'm not sure we would have been able to accept something of this size. So really, I can't even, you know, describe how so many pieces fell together, you know, to make this happen.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm so glad that they did. I'm so glad that you were able to share your expertise and a little extra of your time with us. But I think that's the end of the program. So thank you so much to everybody who has participated, everybody who has donated. There's so many people, and all of their effort went into making this a reality. So thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful day. Donate to the museum. If you enjoyed this, please fill out the survey as you exit the Zoom, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.